So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We return to the 17th Salzburg Summit. We are doing now Dialogue 2, which is one of the most urgent subjects. This is protection, environmental protection, Green Deal, peace with nature. Can we realize the Green Deal? Is it too late? What do we have to do in order to stop global warming and on the other side still continue our social life? We have a very high-ranking panel, which I would like to present to you during the discussion. But we would like to start with a very prominent video statement with a statement of the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations and the Chairwoman UN Sustainable Development Group, Amina Mohammed from Nigeria. Then Magnus Brunner, the Secretary of State of the University for Environmental Protection, will continue. So now let's look to New York. Let's look what the United Nations can say concerning that subject.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to take part in the 17th Salzburg Europe Summit. I want to begin by congratulating the European Union for its focus on a resilient and green recovery. I commend you for putting concerns for climate, the environment, and social cohesion at the heart of your path to a new normal after the pandemic. I also salute efforts in Austria to become climate neutral by 2040 and achieve 100% renewable energy by 2030. We live in an interdependent, interconnected world, and it is critical that all countries have the opportunity to build back better. Yet global recovery is patchy and rife with inequality, further compounded by an unequal distribution of vaccines. Many developing countries continue to face the health and socioeconomic impacts of this terrible virus in addition to debt distress. We can only overcome the pandemic together. To help restore trust, we need to deliver on vaccines, economic recovery, and climate finance. Developed economies need to translate solidarity into meaningful, concrete actions. Europe has helped to show how it can be done at home and been a leading international partner in the global struggle for greater equity and solidarity. We need to keep working together to build a strong recovery everywhere, reinforce the foundations of the global economy, and prevent catastrophic climate change. Thank you for helping to lead the way.
Ja, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren,
Ladies and gentlemen, dear Mr. Governor Schausberger, we have been told by Mrs. Mohammed how urgent are the climatic targets which we have agreed upon in Paris a few years ago. We have to achieve these goals, and I agree, of course, with her. We have to act, and also the voices of 100,000 young people, which we have heard in Europe, must not be ignored. The subject is a very broad one, and I can only tell you parts of it, and I can share only parts with it. And in the panel discussion, we can also talk about the other subjects. Since Paris, the European Union has sharpened its climatic targets. The Commission has presented a new package of laws which promotes Green Deal in a certain direction, fit for 55, because that means minus 55% until the year 30. In Austria, we still have more ambitious targets in the government program. We want to have climatic neutrality until 2040, 100% renewable electricity until 2030 in Austria, for Austria, so we are even a step ahead than the European Union. And for that reason, in order to achieve that target, we have already created the legal basic, especially when we talk about 2030, 100% renewable electricity in Austria. A few weeks ago, We just decided for a biggest energy project, the new law about renewable energy. And this law for renewable energy expansion is not only a law for environmental protection, it's a very big investment project, and you have to consider that a good investment project to invest into the Austrian industry. We will invest 1 billion euros in the next 10 years, and this will lead to investments of 30 billion euros. And this 30 billion are used within the country, are used for the side of Austria, and I'm sure will also secure jobs, will secure the right jobs from our point of view. So we are investing into the regions in Austria, and thus we are giving the requirement impulses for economic recovery, especially now. This is very important. Apart from the 14% investment premium, which we use for ecologization and ecological and digital projects. And this, our project, I think, is the right step. It creates jobs, the right jobs, not only with the energy suppliers, but also with installers, with electricians, with small enterprises, and with agricultural enterprises which want to produce their own energy. So I see this energy transition a good chance for Austria, for the communities, because the content is based on regions and for the whole population. We try to find simply well prepared solutions in order to support all technologies, because it's clear we will need all technologies. We have to expand all technology if we want to achieve our target. We will need every kilowatt hour of electricity in order to achieve our goals, and we need that very quickly. Well, funds on one side will not be sufficient in order to realize projects, also depending on long permission processes, or realize them only in many years. Well, to be sharp, we have to realize every single project, otherwise this package for expansion of renewable energy was in vain. And that's we need a new novel of the new law ÖBB. But this sounds very Austrian, but when I think about the expansion of the grid and the extension of the grid also in the direction of Germany, this is a European problem, this is a European challenge which we have. And these energy transition projects have to be realized quicker. That means, and we should not only talk about it, but we really have to realize these projects. And without an acceleration, without increasing efficiency, these 9 years we still have until 2030 will be not enough in order to achieve this 100% renewable electricity. So once we started, we have to finish. Once we have defined the climatic targets, and of course also infrastructure must be enlarged, lines must be built, and power stations must be built as well. Well, this was the topic investment. In order to achieve our targets, we also need innovation. This is very important, especially in order to reach the target 2040 CO2 neutrality. If we want to achieve that target, well, we know only 30% of the technologies in order to achieve these targets. With the present technological means, it will be difficult to achieve these very ambitious targets. And that's why innovation is the deciding factor all over Europe, but especially in Austria, in order to decarbonize our industrial output. I'm quite open to technology. I do not insist on special technologies. A lot of clean technologies have to exist in a parallel way. There is a market, and this market should decide which solution should be used in which application. And then, especially as far as mobility is concerned, we can discuss this. So we need a mix of technologies. Science and economy are quite agree that they will play an important role. One is hydrogen. For many, this is the key factor for energy transition, for an innovative energy transition. Hydrogen is a kind of all-rounder, can be applied in different ways in industry, for storage, and also in mobility. For the long distances, and also for the extension of these units of electrolysis in order to produce hydrogen. We have foreseen 500 million years in this package. This can be only a beginning, but it is important that we can develop a very extensive hydrogen technology. And the second topic are sustainable fuels, or e-fuels, which will play an important role in the mobility. Why is that so? Because with e-fuels you can just make renewable fuel, and diesel cars, not the combustion engine is the problem, but the CO2 emissions are the problem. But these sustainable fuels can be also used in aviation. Here we closely cooperate with the Austrian economy in order to establish these innovative procedures also in Austria. And when I talk about cooperation, I'm talking about the last topic. This is cooperation. Cooperation is very important when realizing the measures in order to achieve the target. We can succeed with climatic transition only when a lot participate. This will be the essential leverage when we want to achieve our targets, and every citizen, every enterprise must make its contribution. These preconditions have to be created, because it's clear we need all levels. We need the European Union, we need the national level, we need the provinces, the economy, the population, the cities, the communities, everybody where competences are. Well, I think economy is part of this solution already. Thousands of enterprises already take these measures for environmental protection, or at least they would be ready to do so if the framework conditions are granted, if there are the right motivations. And I think this is also a task for our politicians, and we are doing that every day. But we, of course, have to involve also the population, and you can do this only if these solutions are practicable, only if we also consider the reality of life of individual persons. Not everybody has an underground nearby. Not everybody can exchange his oil heating, and not every enterprise has enough money just to use now renewable energies. So we have to consider these life realities of people. And in that connection, I do not think about forbidding anything or a policy in a room or in an enclosure. We need the population. Everybody has to work together. So a very sensitive approach. And I say this also as a representative of the people's parties. And also this eco-social market approach is the only solution. And this is deciding, because just when you think about that word, then you know there is a market economy which makes profits, and the profits can then be distributed for social and ecological measures for compensation. Without market economy, it will not work. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we will successfully achieve these targets only when we are innovative, when we can propose intelligent solutions, and when we are also inclusive. So have a motivation for investments, use innovation, promote innovation, different technologies and promote cooperation on a political level, on an economic level, and also with the population, because an intelligent and innovative climatic policy is a great chance for Austria. But we have to use that. That's also our job. And based on that Green Deal of the European Union, we should create a story of success. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, State Secretary Magnus Brunner, who has taken a seat on the panel. I would like to call this panel, do we take sufficient measures for the Green Deal? I have these experts on the panel who in their companies do something for this Green Deal. The Green Deal goes back to Ursula von der Leyen when she was the new president of the Commission. In my view, in a fascinating speech, she said that's the core task of the next EU Commission. The climate protection, we have to succeed in dealing with it. 1 billion euros was made available. At that time, it was quite some money. 2 years after Corona, we know that this money, of course, can be found. It can be raised also for the fight, for the struggle against Corona. And this climate protection, the fact that it is necessary, we don't have to listen to the President, Ursula von der Leyen. We feel it in our lives, a very hot summer. And in Europe, there were fires, floods. And 20 kilometers from south here in Hallein, I was there in summer, a couple of weeks before I met Franz Schausberger, where we agreed on this moderation. And 2 weeks afterwards, I saw these torrents flowing through Hallein, and many people in need. So maybe this natural disaster was a little made to the side. I would like to come back to Anna Maria Sanchez Infante, the Directorate General Energy in the European Commission. Can you hear me, Mrs. Infante? Yes, I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you. Yes, Mrs. Infante, maybe Corona has put on a little bit back on the agenda. As far as the financial funds are concerned, we had to spend a lot of money for the Corona struggle. Is there still enough of money available for the Green Deal? Frankly speaking, we're still in the Corona pandemic. I had the feeling that we had invested more work, more hours to work in this direction as far as the environment is concerned. We must not forget that 37% of the investments for rebuilding and resiliency have to be invested in the climate, among others also energy, in the energy change. And due to the pandemic and since we had time in the home office closed in, we, as never before, we concentrated on this, and this July package was created. Due to this cooperation, not only Directorate General Energy, but also with other colleagues in other Directorates General, we worked closely together and had a very ambitious program and proposed that program. Thank you very much. Stefan Schnell from the Salzburg government, public transport, but with the Green coalition partner. Is there still money available for climate protection in Austria? Well, in our case, yes, also thanks to the general support of the federal state. We have been suffering in Salzburg from the fact that we had not enough support for public transport. Public transport is being expanded in the Vienna Underground, etc. Salzburg and other provinces, of course, did not get enough, and that's how it is now. Salzburg is the capital of traffic jams in Austria. Now we're working on improving this infrastructure so that we really offer an alternative to the people. When I started office 3 years ago, we only focused on car traffic. The traffic councillor focused on just roads, improving roads, but a turn in traffic policy. Now we have a concrete project. We will have an underground from the main station to Mirabell Platz. That's a mega infrastructural project. Having a look at Michaela Huber in Köstendorf, there are some difficulties due to the hurdles which we have in the environmental impact law. This tunnel through Köstendorf, that the ÖBB track, there is this second delay because there were two animals that prevented us from digging. And these are the concrete problems which the traffic councillor has to cope with. But nevertheless, I am working hard on this traffic situation, so that in addition to the change of the traction technology, we need a change in traffic. We need and we need less people in individual cars and more in public traffic. I think that this climate change can succeed only if we really have a policy change as far as public transport is concerned. In Eastern Austria, the S8, there is this very rare bird that has to be protected according to the Federal Constitutional Court. So this equilibrium between ecological protection of space and expansion of the public traffic. Is this a challenge for politics? Yes, it definitely is. These rail projects suffer from these facts. Therefore, we can't advance this infrastructural project without thinking of the species protection. In Salzburg, we have a very strict natural preservation act, but we have to act quickly. I owe an answer to the population as an alternative for the car. A topography like Austria, people can say they can only use the car. Many people just are left with the car and they rely on the car, and we're succeeding step by step. And I think finding a different legal situation, it would even be easier. Michaela Huber, public transport from Austrian Rail. She's a member of the supervisory board for passenger traffic. The connection from Eastern Europe, from Eastern Austria or Lower Austria, where I come from, to Salzburg. It was the first Austrian rail connection where I said it's really more comfortable, it's even quicker. Now, in the past months, there were these night trains through Europe to Amsterdam, Berlin. Celebrations took place on the railway stations with music bands, just like when the railway was invented more than 100 years ago. So what's Austrian Rail doing for this, for contributing to this change in traffic? We are Austria's largest climate protection company. At the beginning I said this year and last year we had natural disasters just in front of our house door. We have a climate that has changed complete, up to 50 degrees in the south of Europe. We also have already 40 degrees. Rails have to be colored white, and the trains that we buy have to have a different color, different to those of 30 years ago. What are we doing, you ask me? We produce our own electricity or purchase it from outside. It's 100% renewable current. Therefore, rail travel is 51 times more environmentally friendly than by plane. So on the one hand, traffic produces CO2. We have to reduce emissions. We knew that already in the 80s when I still was a teenager. So emissions in the meantime have been reduced. The traffic sector, very little moved there and very little happened there. So the railway has been in existence for 190 years, and we still have this absurd situation, a bizarre situation. We are the solution, part of the solution, and the CO2 in order to reduce CO2 emissions, but at the same time we have competitive disadvantages if we compare ourselves to the low-cost flights. Kerosene is not taxed, and renewable electricity, our tickets are fully taxed because it's cross-border tickets. On any kilometer, we have to pay a rate per kilometer, because those night trains have to travel more than 1,000 kilometers. But at the same time, I can travel with one truck driver from Turkey to Germany. I don't have to pay this toll if I can talk for the subsidiaries. From Turkey to Germany, they have to change 11 times the operator. The respective operator has to change because they have to speak the country's language. We have 4 different rail systems in Europe, 15 different safety guided systems. This can only be solved on a European level. The railway was founded 190 years ago, and the people focused on staying in the country and not being expandable for abroad. So these framework conditions have not changed. These international connections, for example, to Brussels, if the State Secretary wants to go to Brussels to meet Mrs. Sanchez Infante, so this train will leave, he will arrive there at 10 or 11, half a day has already passed. Couldn't this be done even more friendly for the customer so that they can arrive in time? You haven't used the train for, in the meantime, it's a little bit earlier. You're quite right, and this arrival time for us is very important because it determines whether this train is used or not. But this train is a very long one, which also in the priority order comes a little bit later. That is to say, we have to pass through metropolis where the small commuting trains have to pass faster. And specifically with this connection, we have Cologne and Frankfurt, we haven't had this time slot. It's a long snake compared to the commuting trains that have to move very quickly in the morning. So in Belgium, the Netherlands, etc. So maybe I summarize European strategy, uniform systems in the maybe high-speed trails in Europe. Having a look at Asia, for example, it's a little bit quicker than here. Well, Asian area. You talking about Shinkansen. Of course, at an insula, that's easier where you don't have to cross borders. But if we've got 30 or 40 years of time, these high-speed trails can be built. Of course, it takes a long time. It's never too late or too late. We should have started in the 80s. The traffic council said formerly they were responsible only for the car traffic. Now we have here those advocating public traffic. I think we are pioneer in Austria. We have to cooperate more on a European level. Mr. Kroiher from Kapsch TrafficCom, may I, and also Moldova, but the Kapsch TrafficCom, for example, this is, you want to build the toll systems where cars have to pass. Of course, I want to provoke you right now. So what does Kapsch TrafficCom do for consuming or emitting less CO2? Yes, thank you very much to be able here to share a couple of ideas with you. I would like to answer your question. No, we're not competitors. We're just supplementing and connectors in this connection. railway, of course, is very important to us, and these interfaces between rail traffic and individual traffic, and to design it in a way that it is fluid and smoothly. And they also provide a contribution for CO2 emissions to reduce them. And here, traffic jam in urban centers, that's a topic. When I arrived here yesterday, I have seen manifestos. Thank you very much for the daily traffic jam in Salzburg. This is well, reading newspapers is a good idea, at least as far as couriers, the courier newspaper is concerned. This is two messages: a deep frustration that it still happens that many people spend a lot of time in traffic jams. That's the public transport as well as individual transport. We have a lot of creation of productivity that is destroyed by jams, by traffic jams, and we have a very high percentage of emissions which damage nature, which damage the human being, and which contribute to the climate. On the second, jam-free city, liquid traffic, smooth traffic, and the car is one of the main causes of CO2 emissions and of air pollution. Traffic policy modifications here are very important. You said that hydrogen as a mobility response in the short term, electric cars, all these measures and many other measures which you mentioned are extremely important, but are not sufficient, because they are seen for the long term. We have to act in the short term and need a faster possibility of action. And this is offered by the digital traffic guidance. Many European companies, among them also my company, have developed technologies and applied technologies which massively, based on digital traffic guidance, contribute to the reduction of traffic jams. I have my Google Maps. I also see, I know that Kapsch traffic can do more than Google Maps. You've prepared your statement. What does your company offer? It's mainly system integration. That's a key word. There's many processes that are meant by this keyword, which you can't have with a general app like Google Maps. That's to say, they connect very different areas and sectors in a way that it becomes dynamic, and the solution is working quickly. And differences are also included. Interfaces between public transport and individual traffic. Lights, traffic lights, city toll, of course, but that costs a lot of that costs money. But the first step is to facilitate this. The second step is, of course, it's a risk here. If I have digital guidance measures, I've mentioned it in all other aspects. Also, the parking situation, traffic guidance systems, guiding away from the traffic jams. Here, then traffic becomes more smoother and more people use the car. I don't have the traffic, so once again I take the car, which I would not have done normally. And then the price demand and offer. And then as a user I can decide, is this trip important for me? So this pricing structure is important. I get something for it. That's a interplay between in the public market. I use my car, I pay something for it. This travel is subject to a certain rate. The question is the decision I have to take. If I have the pricing level here, I regulate also the traffic. One question, a dream of the drivers here also with electric cars. Can you tell me where there is a free or a free traffic space parking lot? It already works. We'll have to continue then. Ladies and gentlemen, we now want to come to conclude this traffic chapter and hear the problem Iuliana Cantaragiu. I do hope that I pronounce it correctly, the young Minister for Environment. Young in the sense of that the government has just changed. Hearty welcome. Can you hear us?
Frau Cantaragiu, wenn Sie hören den Green Deal.
Ms. Cantaragiu, when you hear Green Deal in Europe, well, we know your country, the Republic of Moldova, is belonging to the poorer countries in Europe. We in Austria, we know that Green Deal will cost a lot of money. Billions have to be moved. What about a country which does not yet really feel this economic recovery?
Yes, thank you for the question. First of all, I'm very delighted to participate in the Europe Summit and in this thematic dialogue on the Green Deal. For the Republic of Moldova, the Green Deal as EU environmental policy provides strategic direction, gives background to turn challenges into sustainable opportunities for green economic growth and to fulfill and support the worldwide Agenda 2030. So in this regard, the related priorities of the EU Eastern Partnership policies beyond 2020 creates a framework to overcome environmental, economic, social challenges and promoting common values and rules in this field. I would like to highlight that Moldova continues taking actions in accordance with the association agreement between the Republic of Moldova and the European Union. National priorities with the objectives of the Environmental Green Deal were included in the association agenda for 2021-2027 with the strong support of green transition, effective pollution prevention for air, soil, water, environmentally sound waste management, promotion of circular economy, protection of biodiversity and actions to deal with climate issues, essential part of the plan of actions of the new government of the Republic of Moldova for the next period. Moldova is strongly determined to keep environmental dimensions among key priorities of the country and sets environmental objectives and indicators in the National Development Strategy Moldova 2030. At the same time, the principles of green and circular economy as the core elements in economic growth policy of Moldova are included in the environmental strategy and relevant programming documents, as well as in sectoral policy documents. It should be mentioned also that Moldova was one of the first countries in the world which has updated its national determined contributions and increased the unconditional target to reduce greenhouse gases emissions by 70% below 1990 level by the year 2030, and now takes consistent steps to develop efficient legislative background and programming in order to reach this goal, and also to provide own input into global joint efforts to combat climate change. It is obvious that no one policy could be implemented without support, input, and understanding of the society. An important role in this process is environmental awareness raising of the population. Thus, the priorities of the European Green Deal, together with the zero pollution objectives, were the key messages of the European Green Week 2021 in June this year in the Republic of Moldova, conducted with the European Union and the for Environment Support.
Frau Umweltminister, entschuldigen Sie, dass ich Sie...
Mrs. Minister, let me interrupt you. I have one question concerning the financing of this project. This costs a lot of money, and the financing with the help of the European Union works quite often that this is a co-financing project. So there are certain funds from the European Union, but every country also has to contribute its own funds. Do you have enough financial possibilities to build wind parks, to use solar energy, to have appropriate traffic projects? Is this possible for the Republic of Moldova?
Okay, all these investments needed to be implemented because I agree that costs a lot of money. And without support, it is not possible, but we are doing communicating with the European Union and other development countries, and also communicating in order to bring this support and to implement all the infrastructure needed to improve the situation in the Republic of Moldova. So the private companies lately started to be more active in the Republic of Moldova in order to build these solar panels, windmills for the development of the electrical grid or mixture in our country. In the same time, one of our goals is to improve the forest management and to extend the land covered by the forest. And in our purpose, now we are revising our policy regarding the financing and regarding the taxation in order to improve the environmental taxes, to bring more financing to implement in the infrastructure needed for the sequestration, carbon sequestration, or for the development of different infrastructure that will address the actions to improve the deal with the climate change issues.
Danke vielmals. Ich mag dann später noch...
Thanks a lot. I will return to you later also with the question of energy supply to the Republic of Moldova. Now we are talking about energy. We have two representatives of the energy industry. Let's start with Gerhard Gampel of the Verbund. He is the Director Strategy corporate development and sustainability. Verbund, this is hydropower. This is a very clean energy. What is Verbund doing beyond that in order to guarantee these targets? We try to do a lot. We want to be at the top of the movement, as Secretary of State Brunner said already. We want to achieve these climate targets 2030, and we want to produce then only renewable electricity. It is a very difficult and ambitious target. Mr. Brunner talked about the ÖBB process. We know that it takes a long time to build these units for replaceable renewable industry. For example, Hainburg is passed. There won't be a hydropower station, as there is no nuclear power station in Austria. But let's talk about the lines, the electrical lines. It took us 20 years to build the electrical lines in Styria along the highway. It took us a long time to build the lines and the grids in Salzburg. Now we have found compromises, but there should be also a kind of social compatibility. But it took us more than 10 years to realize these lines. If we had not realized them, we could not have done this great investment in Kapsch, where the upper and the lower bathtub in this hydropower station Kapsch is linked with tubes already. We increase now the water level in the upper bathtub, and we do a connection line between the two basins and the two tanks. These are very important contributions, but also compatibility, environmental compatibility is a great challenge for everybody. There's also an example in our neighboring country, Bavaria. In the year 2020, we had 3 applications for windmills. In the year 2021, there is not yet an application, because in Bavaria there is now a new regulation. You have to have a distance multiplied by 10 compared with the height of the windmill. So when you build a windmill, there must be a distance of 2 kilometers to the next settlement. This is quite paradox. On one side, you want renewable energy. These are hydropower stations. These are windmills. We all want them to be built, but not around our settlement. I'm from the Wachau, the valley of the Danube, and we also successfully prevented the hydropower station. Yes, there is, but I think this will be one of the big challenges. We always talk about structural change, but if we listen to the political discussions yesterday in the German TV, then we see what are the great challenges for our future. Well, financial means traders. When the representative of the Green Party told the representative of the CDU, who said, we want climatic change, we want economic development, we want solutions for the climatic change. And then the representative of the Green Party said, do you, as a representative of CDU, really want a government? We have much more ambitious goals. And we also talk about strong regulations. And there we also talk about forbidding certain projects. If we want to achieve these targets, 2030 and 2040, climatic neutrality, these are great changes of our system. Until 2030, we need 30% more electricity than we have today. And if we want to keep climatic neutrality until 2040, we need 3 times more green electricity. So you don't really believe that we will succeed. We believe that we can make a great contribution, but we need the framework conditions of the politics. We need this procedure of compatibility. And we need the hydrogen strategy. Germany has it. We do not yet have it. One of the main tendencies is electrical mobility and hydrogen. And for that, the framework conditions must be appropriate because these are long-lasting investments. We need this accountability. That's why we need the support of politics, and we will make our contribution. Hydrogen, good keyword. Now, Mr. Stindl, Managing Director of Gas Connect Austria, until the end of the week. I did not know what is Gas Connect. Now I was reading your homepage. There is a wonderful video film with you and your colleagues, and one of the first sentences said, gas is the energy carrier of the future. Then I went back because I thought this was a misunderstanding, and then I found out how you want to what you wanted to say. Yes, I would like to inform you. Okay, hello, good afternoon. As far as mobility is concerned, we looked at the night train to Brussels. We cannot afford that because we have to pay money for travel reimburses for our employees, and we also have to pay them their working time. The cheapest thing is always the video conference. Well, as far as gas is concerned, fossil gas is not without any value because it enables everything. What we still have now is the function to guarantee supply and the bridging function. That means natural gas instead of coal. And in many Eastern European countries and also in Poland, this is done. There are still lines for natural gas are built. And they should be also safe for the future. They should be able to transport also hydrogen. Mr. Brunner mentioned already in the last version, we have foreseen 40 millions per year. With 40 millions per year, I can produce 3,000 tons of hydrogen. Then after 10 years, I have 30,000 tons, but First and Borealis need 70,000 tons. So where do I get the rest? Of course, I can get it by the existing gas lines. And the good thing is we do not have to build these gas lines as the Verbund. We are a daughter of the Verbund, by the way, full disclosure. But well, our lines are already existing. They just have to be converted, which is much cheaper than to build new hydrogen lines. And with that, energy which is required in Austria can be supplied. This is our vision. If we explain it to the ones who do not yet know it and to the auditors at home, via the existing gas lines, which is 900 kilometers in Austria, hydrogen can be transported in the future. Yes, we could transport hydrogen from the Ukraine to Slovakia or from the north of Africa via Sicily through Italy to Austria. And the background, of course, is that Austria just approximately needs 400 terawatt hours. So when we talk about 27 terawatt hours in the optimum, well, I think we are expecting 11 terawatt hours. Where do we get the missing 150 terawatt hours? So we still do not have a general concept. Maybe this concept is existing, but we do not know it. But now I'm a little bit a lobbyist. This is one of the reasons why we say the natural gas heating should not be switched off until we do not yet know the whole concept. We should not do that. And we are in a very bad position compared to the other countries of the European Union, because in Fit for 55 we have very high obligations but very low funds. And this is linked with the fact that the ability of a country to contribute is just calculated based on the GNP, but the real calculation should be how expensive it is for a country to achieve these goals. It's easy to just change from coal to natural gas, but what do you do if you have no coal? I do not think that we are in a good situation, and as Verbund said, the enterprises must just plan for 20, 30 years in order to have these measures. Well, we have talked about politics. On one side, you mentioned what Mr. Schindel said, and on the other side, there's also this problem of environmental compatibility. It is difficult to realize big investments because everybody says you can do these units, these renewable energy units, but not in my place. What does policy plan? Yes, policy has to plan something, because if you start, you have to continue. If we want to change the situation, if we want to fight with climatic change, then we need the appropriate infrastructure. Of course, considering all requirements. Mr. Schön said you have to take, of course, environmental protection serious, but only one time. And you should not delay a project all the time. You should take it serious. But the procedures should be better structures. Also, digitalization should be used in order to make things cheaper. Who would have thought that experts do not have to drive to the Tyrol all the time? They can also contribute via video conference. So these are all things which we consider in that environmental procedures. There is a working group convened by the minister, and I am sure that this acceleration policy should be within the framework of all this environmental contemptibility. We have to do this now, otherwise we will not achieve the targets of 2030. Of course, it's good to talk about power stations. In Kütai, we had the situation that it took 10 years until this power station was planned and permitted, and then it has to be built. So I think we will not succeed to do this until 2030. Yes, we have to be quicker, because when you start, you have to continue. We need the infrastructure. We also need the lines. It's also a question of price. With energy, you have to guarantee supply. And on the other hand, it's also a question of price. How grids look like when they are going to Germany? Are there enough capacities? This is an important question for economy. So everything is linked and connected. The overall big picture, the overall strategy is important, as Mr. Stingl said. We need it for hydrogen. We need it quickly. The European Union is quicker than we are. Germany is quicker than we are. We have realized part of that strategy in this law of renewable energy together with the recovery fund. So 400 million from the recovery fund. Yes, we did the first steps, but this must be an overall picture. And when we think about the infrastructure gas, of course, you can use this infrastructure also for hydrogen. That's the good thing with gas lamps. We have them already. But you should not forbid gas. You should just make gas greener. This is important. And as Mr. Stiedl said, it's a kind of transition technology which we will still need for a certain time. We just have to make this technology greener. What about the ministry? Mrs. Minister, does she see it like that, or are there some conflicts? When I say gas supply, well, Austrian heating should supply it with gas for a longer time. We have to have alternatives. When you say the gas heating has to be switched off, but then you have to give alternatives. Then this person must have a possibility to have a connection to distant heating. But if there is not that connection, I have no alternative.
Infante,
This is Sanchez Infante. Can you still hear us in Brussels? Yeah. So in the view of Brussels, what does Austria have to do to have to obtain these climate goals 2030, 2035, 40. Where does Austria have to do something? In principle, it's not a problem of Austria only, but of many other member states in Europe. We have Austria, we have the national climate plan, which we received. We analyzed it and commented. As far as the implementation goals are concerned, 2030, electricity, for example, we don't see any major problems, but we see problems in achieving the goals in transport and heat and cold production. But that's not only a problem of Austria alone, it's a general problem, because there are many, there are some sectors, transport and in buildings where this electrification cannot be carried out that easily. Therefore, certain alternative fuels have been mentioned, for example, renewable hydrogen, environment-friendly gases, for example. And it is in this direction that we work. And at the end of this year, in this, we will have a new gas package that will be proposed. And these targets will be implemented in the law. Or we suggested, then the Commission suggested, then the legislative process between the European Parliament and the Member States. Here, negotiations have to start. Whether you accept what the Commission suggests, it will take some time, but we are quite know that it's difficult to implement as Gasconnect and Verbund stated. What we do here in the Commission, we accompany the Member States in this period with consulting services also. Our experts will explain all the proposals which we suggest. And the citizens, of course, everything that is just suggested by us has to be made, has to be communicated to the citizens, because everybody is not just it's not just the large industry, but also the citizens of a country, you and me, for example. Information and communication, that's always important and decisive moment. Here in Korea at 80, we have a climate channel that was established 2 weeks ago. You find all information on climate protection, particularly how it works, focusing on a solution. So the Curie red, Mrs. Sanchez, becomes green. Do you think that what Austria has done up to now, will we achieve the first climate goal in 2030? Is it sufficient? As you quite rightly said, 9 years, it's not that far away. I nearly would reduce it to 8, because the 9th year is nearly over. As with other countries, we will try to help Austria and other countries to achieve these goals. These goals become more ambitious, because at present it's still the current goals that are still valid, and we have suggested more ambitious goals. In principle, until 2030, on a European Union level, we have double the renewable energy that has to be consumed. So a double consumption in 10 years, that's quite a lot. It will not be easier, but our dialogue with the member states and the ministries, environment, and various regulating authorities. We are continuously in touch with these authorities, and wherever there are problems, we try to find a solution. As I've stated, it's not a question of will you be able to achieve it. You must achieve these goals. These goals are established by law, and we from the Commission are supporting the member states to achieve them. And now I'm asking our politician, you're not environmental councillor, but traffic councillor for Salzburg. There are legally obligatory guidelines. Is this something, a red line that where we have to say it has to happen? Yes, we have to take it very seriously, but we also need more support. Michaela Huber mentioned a couple of items which have to be done on a European level. So what I miss here, the final red tape with the railway traffic. The traffic commissioner does not have the sensibility which we would need in Austria as a transit country. The problems we suffer from, so that these problems can be done away. I may say that quite frankly. I think that still can be done on a European level. If everybody was ambitious like we are, the climate goal I think would be achieved easily. Let's see how much we invest in railway traffic and the restrictions. I have issued 3 bans for trucks and exit bans. Of course, that's not funny, but it is a sign that we have to limit this expanding limit. Also driven by the interests of our mayors, of all the neighbors that are living near these motorways, who have less living standards and too much traffic. And once again, this appeal, we have to reinforce public traffic. Mr. Gampel also stated that the resources and the availability of energy, I share this skepticism. If everybody comes with their own car, hydrogen or electrically driven, this cannot be done. We have to be more efficient with more people in one container, in one unit to transport. This must be the focus. Everything else will not be possible. Today, a 14-year-old in the Silicon Valley will think about how we will move in the future. Politics probably has to say very little say, but to design it in a way that this mobility turn can be carried out. And we just don't restrict ourselves in politics to make available roads. This was shown by the past. It will not work. I think we have a model here, Magnus Brunner and I have with Leonora Gabriel, so we have negotiated this government program. We have this climate ticket as from 26th of October. In Salzburg was the first region, a 365 ticket for the region. We are doing a lot because it seems as if we were not doing our homework, but that's not the case. There are also rumors that this climate ticket also could also be issued for the other provinces. Let me say one sentence. I'm not going to answer your questions. What is important? Stefan Schnell said it. We are doing more than 17 billion that are invested in rail infrastructure. Of course, offers, what is offered must be also matching. There must be things must be easier on a European level. And climatic, there's still negotiations with the remaining 3 provinces, rather eastern provinces. But I'm quite confident that in the course of autumn there will be an agreement that we can find. So Michaela Huber can then pronounce it officially. So what is with the 1, 2, 3 ticket? I must disappoint. I have nothing to publish. It's a good measure. To make public transport more attractive. It's a sensational offer. Last year in April, we had minus 90% passengers, really very sad. Our heart was bleeding, and the climate ticket, of course, makes it possible that many passengers come and use the public transport. As a long-year journalist, it looks as if it would come this autumn. The 1st October is coming Friday. Stefan Schnell, one question. the EU Commission, this communication with the citizens. So it's the native politicians are close. This Green Deal has this Green Deal also, this idea of the Green Deal already arrived with the citizens, because sometimes people ask me, what can we do? The Chinese build 500 new carbon power plants, and small Europe will not be able to contribute something to that. Do the people know that? Do they already live that? I think the things have changed a lot, particularly here in Salzburg in the past half year. And the front lines are not along the party limit lines, but rather along a geographical division in the province, in the central area, but also in the Alpine valleys that were affected much by floods. The consciousness is there. Climate people who maybe doubted climate change before, they now say that the human being has to do something with it. So a lot has happened here, which of course is favoring us more. We had this difference between the city and the country. And so that the consciousness is raised there, we need, of course, the support on site. Unfortunately, these environmental disasters, Hallenwald in Pinska, I was there there has never been a flood there, and one of the railways was flooded. The Murtalbahn railway, the Pinzgau local railway, was covered with gravel and everything, nearly at half its height. A very tragic event. But this, of course, going all through all the municipalities, and that's traffic and energy. It is also the case with other topics, preservation of our vital area. There's a skiing area that is going to be built in Austria. I've just read it today. Is this already being done up to the last sector? Of course, we have to take care in which direction we are going to argue this, because we have to keep this society in balance, and climate change has a tremendous explosive power, social power. We try to attenuate this a little bit. It's tasting if we doubt any economic growth in favor of climate protection, it will not work like this. We will not sacrifice people in favor of the planet. But that does not mean that we have to be ambitious and we have to accompany the orderly these developments. What about the gas lines? Dirty energy, as it this energy change which you tried to introduce, was it difficult to convince your employees to tell them we don't think that we can do our business in the future? I must not, of course, mention our customers, but it's 100% Russian gas. In part, it was not difficult because on an international level, the gas line operating companies we have been working for 4 to 5 years to initiate this change. But of course, within Europe, there are great differences. And in the executive boards of these companies, it was difficult to have this accepted by everybody. We offer a CH4, we also offer a pure hydrogen, and we also offer blending. Blending means mixed, because if you don't have enough hydrogen at the beginning, you put it into the natural gas and they blend it, and then you can make available pure hydrogen to the customer. That's the third way. In the meantime, this has been accepted, and the entire gas trade is advocating this. In Eastern Europe, without this statement, cannot be possible anymore. And with the employees, of course, it was not that difficult because so I'm now just saying that the employees of all genders, we have to give them something which brings them to be motivated for work in this company. It was not that difficult. From those who are still adhering to yesterday's ideas, there are only very few left. But what happens if natural gas, for example, we have 75 euros per megawatt hour. If classical natural gas becomes more expensive, that's also the price which organic gas has. The renewable future means that energy will be will be more expensive. Do you think that Austria, that turning away from natural gas to a green gas as a biogas or hydrogen gas in the near future? I think it has to be done step by step. As our colleague from Brussels said, the decarbonization package will be there at the end of the year. So will then negotiate it 23. Then you have 18 months time for implementation. Then you build a pyrolysis plant, which takes 3 years. So you're 2028. Of course, those with subsidies that can be built before, but we are looking at a step-by-step transition, realistically speaking, until 2050. And then, of course, it also depends which methods of renewable gas you take, because there are technologies, technology open, but natural gas can be imported. I burn it with pyrolysis. Then I have a stable carbon. Or in northwestern Europe, where have the gas fields, the exploited gas fields, Rotterdam, for example, we work with carbon capture and storage. So carbon is separated, and by a parallel line it is pressed. The problem in Austria is we don't have all this technology. We don't have offshore windmills. We don't have solar power like in southern Europe. So we have to think very hard about it, what is possible. But we have the Verbund, we have hydropower. Is there a technological further demand on a Verbund level? And the question, you say the Verbund is a very clean company. Can you take your employees with you?
Of course, we can take our employees with us. We have a lot of innovative potential in our employees, especially in young employees, and we have to be quite attractive for these young employees. These are these NSG targets about which we talked already. This is part of our enterprise strategy. But I want to say, Mr. Grassl, you asked myself, are you pessimistic when we talk about the realization of these targets? Well, I would like to see at it from the meta level. There are 3 elements ensuring our optimism. First are the framework conditions. This is sometimes complicated and difficult, especially when we think about the coalition negotiations in Germany. But a lot is being done. We see that there's a strong agenda in Brussels. The second item is the individuum per se, forbidding something. Well, this Klima ticket, 365 euros, this so-called nudging, so you more or less nudge the individual to change behavior because it also brings financial benefits. And the third item has not yet mentioned. This is capital, private capital all over the world, which wants to have certain interest rate. William Chervenka said in the morning, we only give great credits when IG targets are achieved. And when I look at Larry Fink of BlackRock, he has approximately 9,000 billions to administer. So all CEOs of the world are afraid when he's writing his shareholder letter. And he changed his strategy. He is now prioritizing sustainability targets because capital is afraid that they might do stranded investments. For example, invest into coal. 580 coal power stations are being planned in China. Great. But last week, Li Jinping said no coal power stations will be built abroad. Biden, the president, agreed with him and appraised. And why do Chinese do that? Because the demand for coal power plants is not so big anymore. Everywhere in the world, coal is considered a bad fuel because the specific CO2 factor is a very high one. And all states of the world revise their climatic targets, and the Chinese do not get product financing anymore. So he made build his 580 coal power stations, but the 200 abroad had to be stopped. That means I really expect that all the ones who are financing on this world, if I look at Halline or if I look at Antal, which was devastated, great damage for the national economy, for the insurance company. So now sectors are involved which want to change the investment behavior of the states, of the enterprises. And that's why I'm an optimist, because this is a movement coming from three sides. And you asked, do we do research work for new technologies? We are not afraid if all cars are using e-mobility, because then we can manage just to supply. With hydrogen, it's more difficult. Here we need the support of policy. One example from Sweden, a contract has been concluded between Vattenfall, it's the Verbund in Sweden, and Volvo, and there is a great street producer, and Vattenfall is producing green electricity, is sending this to the steel producer. The steel producer is producing green steel, and this is used for Volvo. This difference in the price of Volvo is taken by the state. There is always now a difference in the price. And if I want to use that technology in industry, then it makes sense to finance the difference in order to have a quicker reconstruction of the industry. And everybody who drives a Volvo knows that the CO2 emissions are lower and that there will be only e-mobiles 2030. And if you can do this with programs also in Austria, a lot might succeed. If we achieve the targets 2030, okay, for that we must be very lucky. All the frameworks must be okay. But especially in Austria, there is a cooperation of all social partners, of policy. It's just a question of how to achieve that. And eco-social tax reform, this will be very interesting in Austria, because there the word social is included. We do not only have to take people with us, we also have to think about households which might not be able to afford that. And calculations made in Austria and Germany means a subsidy of 100 euros per year in order to guarantee this restructuring to be more CO2 neutral. And everybody who does not have to pay for a fee for TV should not pay for this increased price for the transition. So I think we will succeed. Things to take people with us, with the heart and also with the money. Well, this sounds like concluding words, but we are not yet at the end. So you also say international financial capital is rethinking, is getting green. For example, Black Hawk, it's getting greener. They do not get green, they get greener. But, well, I would like to go back to us simple persons. Michaela Huber, I love Well, I love the train. Well, I went with the car to the station. I left it in the park and ride garage. But isn't it always the important last kilometer if I knew how to get from the station to the next destination? Is ÖBB, Austrian Railway Systems, thinking about that? I always went by train. I took the bus to go to the station, which is easier in Vienna. A lot of stations cannot only be reached by the car. We have thought about that. We make available now this first and last mile. That means reaching the station, going from the station. So a lot of you are in Alpbach, and then very often I hear, I would love to take the train to Alpbach. The rail jet is great, but then I'm in Wörgl, and these last kilometers are difficult then. I do not want to drive by bus then. And here, as an example, well, we have offers, for example, we have rented cars, we have e-cars which are available, and you can use them, you can rent them to drive the last kilometers in Bad Ischl, in Korneuburg, in Weidhofen an der Ybbs. We have concepts with the municipalities where you can rent a bicycle or an e-scooter, and in Upper Austria, well, in the field, in the area of St. Georgen an der Gusen, we have a shuttle of buses where a lot of municipalities are connected, and you can order a shuttle bus if you have to see a doctor, for example. It must be very easy to book this bus. You can use this with the Wegfinder app, and you must make it simple for people to use public transport so that they do not need a second car. Well, these are very intelligent, innovative concepts. And what Mr. Brunner said, we should not forbid, we should make things greener. It's always better when I'm not forbidding things or allowing things, but when I give incentives, when I can increase efficiency. Efficiency is the most important issue. And if I can do this in connection with greening, let's say, with the greening appearance, then it is positive. And we should not forget emissions. We are talking about saving potential. Well, the Technical University of Graz has calculated that just if in Austria and Germany you have intelligent networking traffic systems in the urban centers, then you can save up to 40% of today's emissions. This is 40% of today's traffic emissions. This is more than in Germany was saved by photovoltaic. Yeah. Well, these are great dimensions which we just could save by networking traffic planning. And also this transition, as you said already, the transition to different providers. Well, the personal transport, individual transport cannot be abolished, but we should it connect better by offering different providers. Well, politics, when you hear about these innovative systems, like for example in Vienna, well, 40% of parking lots within Vienna could be reduced. No, I think politics is listening very carefully, especially we have now already examples like London, Singapore, Stockholm, Milano, where we have systems, of course, in connection with a certain pricing. Yes, politics is listening. They know that there is a great potential which is existing, and politics also knows their own political role. and create framework conditions. And that's the next item. It has been mentioned today already. Be open for technology. And now we are again at the word more leadership is required, and leadership of politics is necessary in order to define framework conditions. What do I want? We have discussed these targets today and we agree, and this gives enterprises the possibilities to offer technologies because we can do that. And this is also important because the wrong way would be something sounds cooler than something else. You have to do it like that, and you have to use that technology. No, don't do that. This is never the right solution. Sometimes it might make sense in certain cases, but it's not okay when politics prescribe certain solutions, which they're doing less and less, if I may say so. Politics has the vision and the target, and technology, science, industry, economy then shall find the way, shall define the way. And in very many cases we do this already, and we are better developed than this is thought. And as I said already, in the big cities. And the last item, yes, you might say, but of course you need a city must have a certain economic financial potential and a certain administrative level in order to work with these high sophisticated solutions and in order to achieve digital traffic networks. But also here the way is the target. You have to start on a low level and then increase step by step. But that's also a challenge for Europe, because we have a strong solidarity idea in Europe, also the idea of a regionalization, otherwise we wouldn't be here. And their politics is necessary in order to find a general European solution. We do not want that city A, B, and C is without emissions or can reduce emissions. It's good, of course, but we want to have it for the whole of Europe. And there, in a good political solidarity, you can achieve a lot. Well, Magnus Brunner, then we will go back to Mrs. Sanchez, the eco-social tax reform, which must be nearly finished. The budget solutions or the first budget negotiations must be concluded already. What do you expect from this social economic tax reform? How much will be the control effect? It's quite a massive interference with the Austrian tax system. What do you expect? I expect that there will be a pricing of CO2. Well, I will not talk about the price, but I said already quite often that the German level is a level which could be a base for us. So the CO2 pricing, everybody agrees. Then we also need a market. We do not want to have a tax. We want to have a certificate trade, a trade with certificates. In the first years, there might be a fixed price, and then agreements on the free markets, step by step. Well, we can prescribe it like that. That's the second item. And the third item, which is very important, because then we talk about the acceptance of the population, there must be also a relief of burden for those who have no other possibilities. Well, this last mile, who have to have a car, especially in the rural areas. And this is what I mean with ecological social tax reform. Yes, there is the ecological part, but we also need the social part. We have to relieve the burden for the ones who have no alternatives. These are the four items of a eco-social tax reform. And so the coalition will consist, despite all the difficulties we have now in Graz. We have a communistic government, but you do not see any difficulties. No, we have a government program. We are working according to that. The target unites us. Maybe not always we have the same way, but I think this is normal in a coalition. No, I'm quite confident that we will achieve that. So we still have a lot to do, the eco-social tax reform, so I'm quite confident. Mrs. Sanchez, Infante, you are still present in Brussels? Yes. Well, on the 1st of November, we will have this World Climate Conference in Glasgow. What do you expect? What would be important from your point of view after these 10 or 12 days negotiating in Glasgow? What should be the headline at the end of this climate conference? What should be written in an Austrian newspaper? That we all, not only the European Union, that we all cooperate. Well, because we might be quite ambitious in the European Union, but if other countries do not cooperate with us, and here I speak about the big countries like the United States or China, if they do not go with us, it doesn't help. So it's a serious situation. It was always a serious situation, but now in Europe, we see these environmental disasters influencing our daily life. This summer we had the floodings in Central Europe, but we are talking in Spain. We have been talking about heat waves, about forest fires. So times is getting difficult and time is running. So we really have to cooperate and we have to have ambitious targets. And I hope Europe will be a pioneer for other countries. And you can also see on our legal framework how we want to do that. And in that sense, we want to be a good example. And of course, we are in close contact with many countries outside Europe because many are interested how we do and work in Europe. And we have a lot of challenges within Europe. We are 27 different countries with different energy mix, different social economic conditions, and so it is not easy for us, but if we can be of assistance, which we can help, we are always open for any dialogue, but we really have to think about that problem in a serious way. Will there be a new figure, a new target, a new target to save energy, or this time we only talk about the serious commitment concerning the existing climate targets? Well, climate neutrality has been, 2050 has been defined already, and in Europe, we have the appropriate legislation for that already. So this means we are getting serious, and we also want that other countries do the same. Because Europe, in that sense, we are not the biggest energy consumers, but when I look at other countries who pollute environment more, so we are not talking only about principles. We have to realize our targets now. Well, I cannot say more, and I will not say more because it's clear what we want. And another question, and a concluding question to you: do you think that the present climatic targets are already sufficient in order to achieve the reduction of the global warming? There are also forecasts saying that the warming will be up to 3 degrees. Well, you hear a lot of opinions. Well, there are different reports in the European Union and sometimes quite horrible reports. It looks a little bit as if this climate neutrality 2050, we are too late already. Well, we have defined, well, during the next years, we must be more ambitious if the climate deteriorates. So we have defined this target, but that does not mean that maybe in a few years we will propose amendments because the targets have changed. We must be even open for amendments. Thanks a lot that you have joined us from Brussels and listened to our discussion. And thank you for your contribution to this discussion. I wish you all the best for Brussels. And I also would like to thank you here, dear ladies and gentlemen, at the Summit Congress for listening, for discussing, for our high-ranking panel. We only had one lady at the panel, but we had two ladies online. And here I have to say, well, the line to Moldavia does not exist anymore. Otherwise, we, of course, would have also listened to the Minister for Environmental Protection in Moldavia. So also all the audience at home, and we also thank you for listening, and we continue with the next panel. Ladies and gentlemen, well, I would like to thank, on behalf of the organizers, the Institute for the Regions of Europe, thank you for this great panel. It was a very vivid panel. It was very interesting. Thanks a lot, Mr. Grasl, for your